Hello, my dear friends. I hope you are doing well. I hope this moment finds you calm and safe. Tonight, there is nothing you need to do. Nothing you need to think about. Just get comfortable. Take a slow breath. And when you are ready, let us begin this quiet sleep story. The train moved slowly through the snowy mountains. Not fast. Not loud. Just steady. Just gentle. White hills rested on both sides of the tracks. Dark trees stood quietly between the snow. Nothing moved quickly. Nothing asked for attention. Inside the train, warm yellow light filled the space. It touched empty seats. It touched quiet faces. It made soft shadows that swayed with each small motion. Outside, snow fell lightly. Not thick. Not heavy. Just enough to soften the world. The sky felt wide. Pale and open. Holding the mountains in silence. The air felt still. Even the wind felt asleep. Far away, the world felt unimportant. Distant. Safe and distant. Only the train remained. Moving. Slow. Steady. Only the warmth inside. Only the snow outside. Only the quiet in between. The wheels made a soft, steady sound. Not a noise. A rhythm. A gentle rhythm. It repeated itself again and again. Slow. Even. Comforting. The sound did not pull attention. It carried it. It held it gently. Each soft movement rocked the body slightly. Not enough to wake. Enough to calm. Enough to rest. Breathing followed the rhythm. In. Out. Slow. Thoughts became lighter. Smaller. Less important. They drifted like snowflakes. Appearing. Fading. Disappearing. Nothing needed holding. Nothing needed fixing. Only the sound remained. Only the motion remained. Steady. Only the warmth inside. Only the snow outside. Outside the window, the world passed slowly. White ground. Dark trees. Soft hills. Everything looked gentle. Rounded. Smoothed by snow and silence. No sharp edges. No strong lines. Only soft shapes. Only quiet forms. The mountains stood far away. Tall. Still. Patient. They did not move. They did not change. They simply were. And in their stillness, the mind also became still. The body felt heavier. More relaxed. More willing to rest. The eyes closed easily. Without effort. Without thought. Inside the carriage, warmth rested in the air. Not hot. Not cold. Just right. It wrapped gently around hands and faces. Like a soft blanket. Without weight. Without pressure. The light did not shine. It glowed. Softly. kindly. It did not ask to be noticed. It simply was. Shadows moved slowly along the walls. Long, quiet, peaceful. They followed the movement of the train. Back and forth. Slow and gentle. Nothing changed suddenly. Nothing surprised the senses. Everything stayed calm. Time felt different inside the train. Slower. Wider. Softer. Minutes did not matter. Hours did not matter. Only the moment mattered. The moment of warmth. The moment of motion. The moment of quiet. There was no need to arrive. No need to plan. No need to think ahead. Only the present existed. Only this soft space. Only this gentle movement. And in this space, the body rested. The mind rested. Everything rested. The train continued its slow path through the mountains. Not changing. Not hurrying. Just continuing. The tracks curved gently through the snow, like a soft line drawn across the earth. They did not rush forward. They did not turn sharply. They simply guided the train. The mountains watched quietly, not judging, not reacting, just present. And in their presence, everything else felt small, soft, unimportant. Only the movement mattered. Only the quiet mattered. Snow rested on the branches of tall pine trees. Not falling. Not moving. Just resting. The weight of the snow bent the branches gently. Not breaking them. Not forcing them. Just guiding them downward. Everything followed gravity. Everything followed softness. And in that softness, the world felt kind. Not sharp. Not hard. Just kind. Far above, clouds moved slowly across the sky. Not fast. Not thick. Just drifting. They carried no storms. They held no danger. Only quiet shapes moving through quiet space. The stars rested behind them, waiting, patient. And the sky held everything without effort. Inside the carriage, the air felt warm and still. Not heavy. Not thin. Just calm. Breathing slowed naturally. Without instruction. Without control. Each breath felt full. Nothing needed changing. Nothing needed fixing. Each breath felt enough. The body began to sink into the seat. Not falling. Not collapsing. Just settling. Muscles softened. The jaw loosened. The eyes grew heavy. Thoughts slowed. Then thinned. Then faded. Only rest remained. The morning did not arrive suddenly. It unfolded, layer by layer, like a soft blanket being gently pulled away from the sleeping world. Light moved across the land in a slow, patient way. Not bright. Not sharp. Just warm enough to be felt. Just soft enough to be trusted. The snow did not disappear. It only changed its voice. From a quiet stillness into a gentle shimmer. A faint sparkle that whispered of warmth without asking anything in return. The air felt lighter now. Not cold. Not warm. Just calm. A breath that did not rush in or out. A breath that simply existed. Somewhere far away a bird called once. Not loud. Not lonely. Just present. A sound to remind the world that it was still alive. And the land listened. The trees listened. The mountains listened. Everything paused long enough to hear that single note. Nothing needed to be done. Nothing needed to be changed. The world was exactly where it needed to be. And so were you. You rested inside this quiet moment. Not as a thought. Not as a feeling. But as part of the stillness itself. And the morning continued. Slow. Gentle. Kind. The light kept moving. Not forward. Not upward. But inward. Into colors. Into shadows. Into soft places between things. It touched the sides of the mountains. It slid into the curves of the hills. It rested briefly on the tops of trees like a hand placed gently on a shoulder. Every surface received it differently. Snow reflected it. Stone held it. Water carried it. And the air softened around it. There was no hurry in this light. It had nowhere else to go. Nothing else to become. It was already complete in its quiet movement. Time felt wider here. As if minutes stretched longer. As if seconds became slow enough to be felt. As if the space between one breath and the next was a place you could rest. You drifted through that space now. Not walking. Not floating. Just existing inside it. Held by nothing. Supported by everything. Thoughts grew softer. Then thinner. Then transparent. Until they became part of the air itself. There was no edge to this moment. No beginning. No ending. Only a gentle continuation that required nothing from you. And so you remained. Quiet. Loose. Safe. The world now felt like a single slow breath. In. And out. In a rhythm older than memory. Older than names. Older than time. Nothing interrupted this rhythm. No sound too sharp. No movement too sudden. Everything belonged to the same gentle pattern. Even the wind moved differently here. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just drifting through open spaces like a soft idea that never needed words. The tree swayed without effort. The clouds slid without resistance. The snow rested without weight. And you rested with them. Your body remembered how to be heavy. How to sink. How to release the need to hold itself together. Muscles softened. The jaw loosened. The forehead smoothed. And the breath deepened all on its own. Nothing asked you to relax. Nothing instructed you to let go. The world simply became so safe that letting go felt natural. And inside that safety, you drifted lower, deeper, further into the quiet place that had always been there. A place without questions, without answers, without even the need for either. Just rest, just stillness, just peace. Somewhere beneath awareness, a gentle warmth began to grow. Not heat, not fire, just comfort. Like the memory of a soft blanket or a familiar room. It spread slowly, across the chest, through the arms, down the spine, into the legs, until the whole body felt held from the inside. This warmth carried no energy, no excitement, only ease. A quiet signal that everything was allowed to stop now. The heart slowed. The breath widened. The space between thoughts became longer than the thoughts themselves. You were no longer inside the moment. You were the moment. No border. No separation. Just one soft field of awareness and rest. The world faded not into darkness, but into softness. Edges dissolved. Distances vanished. And everything blended into one gentle presence. There was nothing left to follow. Nothing left to listen for. Nothing left to wait for. Everything had already arrived. And you rested inside that arrival. Weightless. Effortless. Complete. Sleep was not coming. It was already here. The deepest calm now surrounded everything. Not silence, but a living quiet. A quiet that held sound the way water holds light. Breath moved through you like a tide. Slowly in. Slowly out. Carrying nothing. Leaving nothing behind. The body was no longer an object. It was a place. A soft landscape of rest and warmth and stillness. The mind was no longer a voice. It was space. Wide. Open. Unoccupied. You did not fall asleep. You drifted into it. Like a leaf drifting onto water. Without effort. Without direction. Without resistance. There was no point where wake ended and sleep began. There was only a soft blending of one into the other. And in that blending, you disappeared. Not in loss, but in peace. The world continued its gentle rhythm. The breath continued its slow movement. The quiet continued its endless holding. And you rested. Deeply, safely, completely. The air became lighter. Not thin, but open, as if space itself had widened. Breath moved more slowly now. In and out. Each breath softer than the last. The body felt less heavy, less tight, less held by the ground. The world did not press anymore. It no longer leaned forward. It leaned back. Gently. Kindly. Clouds drifted slowly across the inner sky. Not clouds you could see, but clouds you could feel. Soft layers of calm passing through thought, through memory, through feeling. Nothing needed attention. Nothing asked to be solved. Nothing waited to be done. Everything already was. Everything already rested. And in that wide, quiet openness, the mind floated. The body floated. Awareness itself floated. Slow, gentle, free. Distance appeared. Not separation, but space. Healthy space. Comfortable space. The kind that lets the heart relax. The world felt far away now. Not lost. Just quiet. Like a city seen from a high mountain. Small. Soft. Unimportant. Sounds faded into silence. Silence deepened into stillness. Stillness became the only language left. Even thoughts moved away. They drifted to the edges. They sat quietly in corners. They stopped knocking on the center of the mind. The center became empty, but not hollow. It was full of calm, full of rest, full of gentle nothing. In that calm space, the nervous system softened. The muscles released. The breath became smooth and round. There was nothing to reach for, nothing to avoid, nothing to protect. Only presence remained. Quiet, safe, held. Light slowly faded. Not suddenly, not sharply, but like a candle dimming in a quiet room. Warm colors softened into cool ones. Gold into blue. Blue into violet. Violet into deep night. The world prepared itself for sleep. And the body followed. And the mind followed. And awareness followed. All together. All slowly. All gently. Even time changed its shape. It stopped moving forward. It stopped counting. It stopped measuring. It became a wide lake. Still. Smooth. Without ripples. Without waves. Without motion. Moments no longer lined up. They melted into one another. Past and future became the same soft blur. Only now remained. And now was quiet. Now was slow. Now was kind. Now was safe enough for sleep. Night wrapped around the world. Not like a blanket, but like a soft field of silence. Stars appeared. Not bright. Not sharp. Just faint points of gentle light. Like thoughts that no longer needed words. The moon watched quietly. Not judging, not guiding, just present, just steady, just calm. Darkness did not hide things now. It softened them. It rounded their edges. It removed their weight. Even worries looked different in the dark. They looked small, distant, unimportant. The body felt safe enough to let go. The mind felt safe enough to loosen. The heart felt safe enough to rest. And rest began. Not suddenly, but like sinking into warm water. Slowly, evenly, without effort. Everything finally settled. Not stopped, but settled. Like snow resting on the ground. Like dust settling after movement ends. The breath found its natural rhythm. Slow. Deep. Unforced. The body found its natural state. Heavy. Warm. Supported. The mind found its natural home. Quiet. Open. Still. Nothing needed watching anymore. Nothing needed remembering. Nothing needed planning. Nothing needed fixing. Awareness itself grew soft. It stopped pointing outward. It stopped pointing inward. It simply rested. And in that rest, sleep became possible. Not as an action, but as a return. A return to what was always there. Calm. Still. Safe. The body sank deeper. Not downward, but inward. Into itself. Every place that once held tension, now held softness. Shoulders softened. Jaw softened. Eyes softened. Even the tongue rested quietly inside the mouth. Breath no longer needed guidance. It found its own path. In. Out. Slow and round like gentle waves on a quiet shore. The heartbeat slowed. Not weaker. Just quieter. Like a drum heard from far away. Steady. Safe. Reassuring. Nothing was being done anymore. Nothing was being achieved. Nothing was being improved. The body was simply being. And that was enough. In this state, there was no effort. Only allowing. Only letting. Only rest. The mind followed the body into stillness. Thoughts did not stop. They slowed. They became soft shapes instead of sharp words. Images drifted through awareness. Gentle images. Simple images. A slow river. A wide field. A quiet sky. Each image faded into the next. No story. No sequence. Just movement without direction. Meaning dissolved. Labels dissolved. Names dissolved. Only sensation remained. Warmth. Heaviness. Ease. The mind no longer tried to understand. It no longer tried to decide. It no longer tried to control. It simply rested inside experience. And experience itself became soft enough to turn into sleep. Awareness began to narrow. Not tightly, but gently, like a camera slowly focusing inward. The edges of perception faded. Sounds from the world became distant. Sensations from the body became faint. Only the center remained. A soft center. A quiet center. A warm center of being. This center did not think. It did not judge. It did not remember. It simply existed. Calm. Still. Whole. In this space there was no identity. No role. No history. No future. Just presence. Just rest. Just now. And now slowly became sleep. The boundary between waking and sleeping softened. It blurred. It thinned. It became transparent. Images lost their clarity. Sounds lost their form. Thoughts lost their language. Everything became impression instead of object. Feeling instead of idea. Warmth instead of meaning. The sense of the body faded into comfort. The sense of the world faded into distance. The sense of self faded into quiet. There was no falling asleep. There was no crossing into sleep. There was only a gentle dissolving into it. Like mist dissolving into air. Like waves dissolving into water. Like night dissolving into rest. Sleep arrived. Not as an event, but as a state that was always waiting. It held the body without weight. It held the mind without thought. It held awareness without effort. Nothing moved now. Nothing needed to move. Everything had reached its natural stillness. The breath continued. The heart continued. Life continued. But without disturbance. Without noise. Without urgency. The world slept. The body slept. The mind slept. And awareness rested inside it all. Safe. Quiet. Held. At peace. Sleep deepened. Not heavier. But wider. Like sinking into a warm ocean that had no bottom. The sense of time faded further. Moments did not follow each other anymore. They simply existed. Side by side. Without order. The breath was barely noticed now. The heartbeat barely felt. The body barely sensed. Everything became distant. Soft. Unimportant. Awareness floated inside this deep space. Not watching. Not thinking. Not holding. Just being. And being itself was peaceful enough to feel like nothing at all. Images appeared, but they had no edges. No color. No form. Just impressions. A feeling of drifting. A feeling of warmth. A feeling of safety. Nothing more. Nothing less. Memory no longer formed. Experience no longer stored. Everything passed without leaving a trace. This was not unconsciousness. It was deeper than that. It was rest without effort. Presence without attention. Like floating in a dark, quiet sea, where even waves no longer existed. The sense of self softened. It loosened its shape. It became less defined, less centered, less separate. There was no I here. No me. No mine. Just experience without a label. The border between inside and outside faded. Body and world blended into one soft field. Nothing stood apart. Nothing stood alone. Everything belonged to the same quiet space. And that space felt safe enough to hold everything gently. Silence was no longer empty. It was full. Full of rest. Full of peace. Full of softness. Darkness was no longer dark. It was gentle. It was kind. It was warm. Stillness was no longer still. It was alive. Alive with calm. Alive with ease. Alive with quiet comfort. Even nothing felt like something now. Something safe. Something steady. Something whole. And wholeness required no effort. Rest reached its deepest point. Not a bottom, but a center. A quiet center where nothing moved. Here there was no story. No thought. No memory. No sensation. Only being remained. Pure. Silent. Still. Life continued quietly in the background. Breath. Heartbeat. Warmth. But without awareness holding them. And in that gentle absence, sleep held everything. Perfectly. Completely. Kindly. From the center of stillness, a softness spread outward. Not movement, but presence. It touched everything gently. Breath. Heartbeat. Warmth. Without changing them. Without guiding them. Just being with them. There was a sense of being held. Not by something, but by the space itself. Like floating inside a quiet cocoon of calm. Protected. Warm. Safe. Nothing could reach here. No sound. No memory. No worry. Only rest lived here. Only peace stayed here. And peace felt natural. Not special. Not rare. Just normal. The world outside faded even more. It became distant noise behind thick walls of calm. Inside, there was only softness. Only warmth. Only quiet rhythm. The breath continued its slow dance. The heart continued its steady song. Life stayed present without asking for attention. There was no observer now. No one watching the breath. No one noticing the heartbeat. They simply happened. Awareness rested inside them, like a leaf resting on still water. Not sinking. Not floating. Just resting. And that rest was enough. Even the idea of rest softened. It lost its name. It lost its shape. It became just a feeling. A feeling of okayness. A feeling of enoughness. A feeling of nothing needing change. There was no tension left to release. No holding left to drop. No effort left to stop. Everything had already arrived where it belonged. In its own quiet place. In its own natural state. This was not sleep as an event. It was sleep as a condition. A condition of ease. A condition of peace. And it required nothing. Time disappeared completely. Not slowed. Not paused. But gone. There was no before. No after. No during. Only this. And this was wide. And this was soft. And this was empty in a full way. Nothing entered. Nothing left. Nothing changed. Existence simply rested inside itself. Like a circle without edges. Like a sky without horizon. Perfectly still. Perfectly calm. Perfectly complete. Sleep held everything now. Without grip. Without pressure. Without boundaries. It held the body in warmth. It held the mind in quiet. It held awareness in peace. Nothing was separate. Nothing was missing. Nothing was extra. Everything was exactly enough. And in this enoughness, there was no need, no desire, no fear, no hope, only being, only rest, only calm, and calm was home. Calm continued, not as a moment, but as a field, a wide, gentle field of rest. Nothing disturbed it. Nothing entered it. Nothing needed to be kept away. The body rested inside it. The mind rested inside it. Life itself rested inside it. There was no movement towards sleep. Sleep had already become the environment. Like air around the body. Like water around a fish. Rest was everywhere. And everywhere was safe. Even safety softened. It no longer needed to be felt. It simply was. Protection was no longer a concept. There was nothing to protect against. Nothing to avoid. Nothing to fear. The nervous system remained open and relaxed. The heart remained slow and steady. The breath remained smooth and quiet. There was no alertness left. No vigilance. No readiness. Only rest. A rest without edges. A rest without depth. a rest without limit. The quiet deepened beyond quiet, beyond silence, beyond stillness. It became a gentle absence, not empty, but free. Free of thought, free of form, free of time, free of self. Nothing remained that could be named. Nothing remained that could be held. Nothing remained that could be changed. Only this remained. And this was enough. There was no sense of being asleep now. And no sense of being awake. Those ideas had dissolved. There was no state to be in. No place to arrive. No condition to maintain. There was only being. Quiet being. Soft being. Gentle being. Like a flame without heat. Like light without direction. Like presence without a center. Just this. Just rest. Just peace. Everything rested inside everything else. Without borders. Without layers. Without separation. Body inside breath. Breath inside space. Space inside awareness. Awareness inside nothing. And nothing inside everything. This was not sleep. And not wakefulness. It was deeper than both. A place with no name. A state with no shape. A rest with no opposite. And it held all things gently. The sense of having a body began to fade. Not disappear. Just soften. Edges melted into air. Weight became light. Light became space. Breath did not feel owned anymore. It moved on its own. Like wind through leaves. Nothing needed to be done. Nothing needed to be held. Everything happened without effort. The night did not surround you. You were the night. Soft. Wide. Endless. Thoughts became distant echoes. Fading before they could form. Like ripples dissolving on still water. Awareness rested inside itself. Not watching. Not searching. Just being. And being felt safe. Deeply safe. Naturally safe. The space within felt as wide as the sky. The sky felt as gentle as breath. Nothing separated anything anymore. There was only softness. A quiet warmth began to glow inside that softness. Not heat. Just gentle presence. Like a candle behind thick glass. Steady. Calm. It did not brighten the space. It softened it further. Every layer of tension melted into that glow. Muscles forgot their shape. Nerves forgot their urgency. Even the idea of rest became unnecessary. Because rest was already here. Time felt like it stopped trying to move. Moments no longer lined up. They floated. Past and future felt the same distance away. Which was no distance at all. There was nowhere else to arrive. Nothing else to become. The mind folded gently into silence, like fabric settling on a smooth surface. Silence was not empty. It was full of ease, full of stillness, full of peace. That peace did not ask anything, did not expect anything. It allowed everything to be exactly as it was. Breath came and went like a slow tide, touching the shore, then leaving it again. Nothing followed the breath. Nothing waited for it. It was free. The heart softened into a gentle rhythm, not counting, not measuring, just flowing. The body felt like a distant memory, a kind one, a quiet one. The sense of meat became thinner, more like a feeling than a shape. Awareness spread evenly through everything, like light filling the room without a source. There was no center, no edge, only gentle presence. And that presence felt kind, deeply kind. Kindness rested everywhere. In the air, in the dark, in the silence. It was not emotional. It was natural. Like gravity. Like warmth. Nothing could disturb this softness now. Not sound. Not thought. Not memory. Everything that arose faded before it could stay. Like mist in morning light. There was no resistance. No holding. No pushing away. The system relaxed completely. Every layer. Every depth. Every hidden corner. Sleep was no longer something you entered. It was something you were. Rest was not happening to you. You were resting as everything. And this rest felt endless. Limitless. Timeless. Timelessness held everything gently. Like a wide, quiet ocean. Nothing moved too fast. Nothing stayed too long. Everything flowed perfectly. There was no reason to wake. No reason to sleep. Both felt the same. The nervous system floated in calm waters. Supported. Carried. Safe. Even the idea of safety became unnecessary. Because nothing could be unsafe here. The deepest part of the night was not dark. It was soft. Infinitely soft. Awareness rested inside that softness. Without effort. Without direction. Without end. And this was enough. Always enough. Forever enough. Everything rested. Everything softened. Everything was home. The night felt complete. Not finished. But full. A fullness without weight. A fullness without effort. A gentle sense that nothing more was needed. Nothing missing. Nothing waiting. Nothing pulling attention forward or backward. Only this quiet, floating now. Breathing continued. Soft. Automatic. Unnoticed. each breath arriving like a small wave on a silent shore. Each breath leaving without leaving a trace behind. The body did not try to rest. It simply rested. Thoughts no longer formed words. They became feelings. Then those feelings softened into space. The mind did not hold anything. It allowed everything to pass through. Like light through mist. Like wind through open air. Nothing stayed long enough to disturb. Nothing stayed sharp enough to wake. Time felt wide. Not long. Not short. Just wide enough to hold peace. Wide enough to hold stillness. Wide enough to hold sleep. And within that wideness, everything felt gently held. The world outside continued. But far away, very far away, sounds softened before they could reach this place. Movement slowed before they could matter. Light faded before it could disturb. Everything became distant enough to feel harmless. Safe. Quiet. Small. Inside, there was only a slow, warm awareness. Not thinking. Not watching. Just being. Like floating in warm water. Like resting on a cloud that never moves. Nothing asked for attention. Nothing asked for effort. The heart beat quietly. Not loud. Not urgent. Just steady. Just kind. A simple rhythm that required no control. A rhythm that carried the body deeper into rest. Even memory loosened its grip. Past became soft. Future became faint. Only this calm moment remained. This gentle space where nothing needed to happen. Where nothing could go wrong. Where nothing could be lost. And in this space, the mind drifted further into quiet. Rest was no longer an action. It was a state. A state where everything was allowed to slow. Allowed to soften. Allowed to fade. Muscles released what they had been holding. Nerves released what they had been carrying. Even awareness released its need to stay alert. The body felt supported by something unseen. Something gentle. Something endless. As if the night itself was a soft bed. As if the darkness was a blanket made of calm. Covering everything equally. There was no edge to this feeling. No border. No beginning. No end. Only a slow, peaceful spreading of ease. Like warmth moving through cold hands. Like light filling a quiet room. Nothing resisted. Nothing rushed. Nothing questioned. Everything simply followed the natural pull toward stillness. Toward silence. Toward deep, effortless sleep. And the world became very, very gentle. Awareness thinned into softness. Like mist dissolving into air. Like a whisper fading into silence. There was no need to stay present anymore. No need to observe. No need to understand. Everything had already been understood enough. The mind rested inside the body. The body rested inside the night. The night rested inside something even larger. Something calm. Something timeless. Something kind. Even the sense of self became quiet. Not gone. Just lighter. Just softer. Just less defined. Like a shape made of fog. Like a name slowly forgotten in a dream. Nothing was required to be anyone anymore. Nothing needed to hold an identity. Everything was free to simply float. Simply rest. Simply be. And in that freedom, sleep deepened naturally. Now there was only stillness. Not empty, but complete. A stillness that felt alive. A quiet that felt warm. A darkness that felt gentle. Everything had settled into its natural place. Everything had returned home. Breathing continued somewhere far in the background. The heart continued somewhere quietly inside. But attention no longer followed them. They carried on by themselves. Kindly. Faithfully. Silently. There was nothing left to do. Nothing left to decide. Nothing left to manage. Everything was already happening in the easiest way possible. The only movement was the slow drift into deeper rest. And so the mind floated down into sleep. Softly. Slowly. Naturally. Like a leaf settling on still water. Like a cloud dissolving into sky. And everything rested. Hey guys, the story is over. Now you can sleep peacefully. We'll see you soon with a new story. Take special care of yourself, friends. Good night.